What's up, everybody? Banana Crapshoot here with Space Arena Ground Arena, bringing you my Cad Bane aggression deck tech. Cad Bane is my favorite Star Wars character. I've been playing Cad Bane now since he was previewed, um, printing proxy decks out and getting in as many games as I can. I've played him with pretty much every aspect. Blue, not as much as green, red, and yellow. But red is by far my favorite, and I'm super excited about where it's at. So I'm gonna bring you deck tech for it. So let's get right into it. Like the other ones I've been doing, we're gonna go through what makes it work, the flair of the deck, how we tech it out, what we're looking for in the mulligan, how we actually pilot the deck, what's in our sideboard, and some adjustments we can make on the deck. So here's the overview. Here's the full deck tech or the deck list. We're running Tarkin Town. This Tarkin Town pairs really great with Cad Bane's ability. So in the deck, we are running 3 copies of Guild Target, 2 Greedos, 3 Dengar, 2 Hotshot, DL44 Blaster, 3 McClunky, 3 Lady Proxima, 3 Cartel Spacer, 2 No Good to Me Dead, 2 Dr. Evanzin, 3 Boba Fett, 3 Punishing One, 2 Frozen and Carbonite, 3 Relentless Pursuit, 3 Toro Calican, 2 Gamorrean Guard, 3 Forlom, 4 Zuckuss, 3 Xanadu Blood, 2 Fennec Shand. A lot of underworld units, a lot of synergy, a lot of good stuff happening there. We'll get into it more. And then in the sideboard, 2 copies of Daring Raid, 2 copies of Power Failure, 2 copies of Bazine, 2 copies of Disabling Fangfighter, and 2 copies of Pillage. So I'll talk about the sideboard and stuff a little bit then after we go through the deck. But what makes the deck work? So Cad Bane, when you play an underworld card, you can exhaust them and then your opponent chooses a unit they control and they deal a damage to it. This works really well with Tarkin Town's epic action to deal 3 damage to a non-leader unit. This pretty much wipes out any aggro unit they're going to play round 1, and if you remove aggro's turn 1 play, which makes it so they didn't have a turn 1 play, you're so far ahead against aggro at that point. I would consider Cad Bane aggression to be a more aggro tempo deck, um, maybe a mid-range tempo deck. Definitely a tempo deck, but it's way different than Boba Fett and how he tempos out. So, but Cad Bane, his ability to ping paired with Tarkin Town is really strong. And then Dengar, I love Dengar in here. I can't imagine not having Dengar in here. He swings way above his weight class. Yeah, his stats are not great. His when you play an upgrade on a unit, will trigger off of 5 cards in our deck: the 3 Guild Target and the 2 Frozen and Carbonite. The Guild Target, I don't mulligan for it. It's more of like a bonus, because we're pinging a lot of damage and we're making like with Forlom and Zuckuss and Gamorrean guards, and with Boba Fett unit, we can trade into some units at some good opportunities, and if we can get extra damage on base that way, that helps again put us ahead. But we do have 5 upgrades in the deck that Dengar can trigger off of to deal damage, which can also set up Tarkin Town. It can help with McClunky, and the Cad Bane pings add up over time. So Dengar swings way above his weight class, and I like him in here. He's also not super threatening, and he's a good McClunky target. So McClunky's another one that's really good here. It allows us to return a friendly non-leader underworld unit. If you do deal 3 damage to a unit. Now it is flexible in that it allows us to return any non-leader friendly unit. So Dengar and Greedo are the 2 main targets, but you can also bounce like a Gamorrean guard if it only has 1 health left, and you can bring it back to your hand to save it and replay it. You can bounce a Boba Fett unit back to your hand. It is flexible in that what you can return, and it deals 3 damage. It, again, like Tarkin Town, pairs really well with the Cad Bane pings. It also triggers Cad Bane, so we can deal 3 damage to a unit. If they only have 1 unit out, then we can exhaust Cad Bane, and then they can deal the final damage to it. Also, Lady Proxima is awesome here. I mulligan for Lady Proxima all the time. If she's in my opening hand, I feel so much better, because when you play another underworld card, you can deal 1 damage to a base. So Dengar is an underworld card, McClunky is an underworld card, Greedo is an underworld card. Almost everything in this deck. There's couple cards in here, but almost every unit. There's only one unit in this deck that's not underworld, and that's Toro Calican, because he has another synergy I like in here. But most of our cards are going to trigger Lady Proxima to deal damage to a base. So not only are we pinging units and setting up McClunkies and Tarkin Towns and better trades, but we're also dealing damage to the base at the same time. And Sabine, one reason she's really good is because she consistently can deal damage to the base and puts your opponent on a clock. Lady Proxima helps us put our opponent on the clock. So not only are we getting unit pings, but we're getting base pings, which is super strong. And Greedo I like a lot here as another 1-drop. I like having the 5 1-drops. In addition to Lady Proxima, because I like to play 2 1-drops turn 1. Greedo allows us to be aggressive early, so that's why I like Greedo. You got to be careful because there's a lot of decks out there that can ping between Vader pinging, Bo-Katan can ping, other Cad Bane decks can ping. There's a lot of leaders that can ping, so you got to be careful with Greedo. But I still really like him here because he's a 1-drop, and we can be aggressive with him early, and we can bounce him back to hand with McClunky. We can try to protect him a little bit. So that's the general shtick. So the Cad Bane leader, like I already talked about, pings when we play underworld cards. He also has a very strong deploy turn, I found. He deploys on 6, and his stats are 2 attack with 8 health, but he does have raid 2. And a lot of times I find that on the deploy turn, I'll smuggle in like a hot shot blaster, so he's swinging for 6. And that can be very overwhelming for opponent because it's hard to deal with a 6-8 leader. So yeah, his deploy turns I found to be very strong. You can use pigs to leverage trades and removal for tempo swings. He does have a pretty good tempo game. I talked about Lady Proxima, the cheap units, and the bounce. Besides McClunky, we can also bounce late game with Xanadu Blood. So if we have a Dengar or a Greedo, or maybe like a Boba Fett that's almost dead and we swing with it, like we can bounce it with Xanadu Blood and then replay and then get another ping off Lady Proxima. Sometimes you want to bounce Lady Proxima to replay Lady Proxima, so a lot of that comes with game situation and game reps, but yeah, the main focus is play a lot of underworld cards, and then you want to trigger Lady Proxima as much as possible to get extra damage on base. And then we do have some bounce effects with McClunky and Xanadu Blood that we can take advantage of that. And then also if you're playing like there's still waylays around, there's still spare the targets running around, so there's other ways we can get units back to hand that our opponent will do it for us. That actually helps our win condition. So the flair of the deck, so Forlom and Zuckuss is a crazy good combo. You play Forlom on 4 with ambush, and then next turn you can play Zuckuss for 5, and since you have Forlom out, he gives Zuckuss ambush and +1/+1, so for 5 you get a 7/7 ambush with Saboteur, and then Forlom becomes a 5/5 at that point. That's a really strong combo. It is a great way to go up our curve. We have a really strong curve in that mid game with Forlom and Zuckuss. They're both underworld units. They're both bounty hunter units, which is also relevant. So because you can use Relentless Pursuit, like I've already like ambushed in with Forlom, and if I don't have the Zuckuss that next turn, I have Relentless Pursuited like a 3-drop and shielded Forlom, so then you can swing again for 4 with the shield and protect them a little bit. They can also trigger Toro Calican. That's more so if he's out. You don't really do it on Forlom. A lot of times he'll have 1 or 2 health left after his ambush in. But Zuckuss, you can usually have a couple things of health left. You don't mind pinging him to reset Toro sometimes. And then Xanadu Blood. I know some people aren't too crazy about Xanadu Blood. I think it's really good. It's a 6/6. It straight up deals with every other space unit in the game very effectively. And we can bounce cards back to our hand to exhaust. Most of the time, I'm looking at exhausting enemy resources. So we can bounce that Dengar or that Greedo back to our hand in the late game. We can swing in for 6 and we can exhaust our enemy's resources, which is I have found to be super backbreaking at times. When we can swing in with Xanadu Blood and ice their resource, and now they can't play that Snoke, or now they can't play that Avenger. Now they can't play that Crate. It really makes the math work in our favor a lot better. So even though Xanadu Blood doesn't have ambush, I have found that Xanadu Blood is a very, very strong space unit. So the tech out, Frozen in Carbonite, is the other upgrade we have in here besides Guild Target that we can play on an enemy unit to trigger Dengar pings. Frozen in Carbonite is a great way to just ice a unit where there's a lot of Darksaber, there's a lot of upgrades running around. Being able to ice those units. We can't ice leaders, but any non-leader unit, including space units. So we can ice a fire spray when they play it. We can ice an Avenger. We can ice anything other than leaders. So Frozen in Carbonite is very effective soft removal tool for us. Relentless Pursuit's also very good for us. Anything from 6 down, basically, we can capture and give a shield to, because I think all of our units except for Gamorrean guards and Fennec Shand are bounty hunters, and then Cad Bane himself is a bounty hunter. So like you could capture a fire spray or anything that's 6 or less, you can capture in this deck consistently. And when you capture when the guarding unit's a bounty hunter, it gets a shield. So that's also really good because it helps protect our units, right? So and Toro, talking about him last year in this tech out section, the 3/5 for 3 when you play another bounty hunter unit, you can deal damage to the bounty hunter unit you just played, and you can ready Toro. You can only do that once per round, but it has been pretty strong because, like I said, everything except for Fennec Shand and Gamorrean guards is a bounty hunter. So he's not underworld, he is bounty hunter. But we can have Toro out, we can play Forlom, we can play Zuckuss, we can play Boba Fett's later. And if we're replaying Dengars, and you don't want to do it to Greedo, but I guess potentially you could if it's going to win you the game. But getting the resets on Toro has been pretty strong too. So that's why he's in here. Our Mulligan, almost always I'm looking for Lady Proxima and another 1-drop. It really doesn't matter the situation. It's really great in the control because we can play around Power of the Dark Side. That's really good into mid-range because it sets up a race. It's really good into aggro because it sets up our removal of their turn 1 play and allows us to just smash face. And you can potentially race aggro depending how that works out. But I'm almost always looking for Lady Proxima and then Greedo or Dengar. Cartel Spacer is the backup plan because it's really the only other unit we can play. Turn 1, so that's not always ideal. Lady Proxima and another 1-drop is kind of what we're looking for on turn 1. I like that because also we, as Cad Bane, most of the time we want to go second, so we can try to get the ping as consistently as possible. And people will try to dirtle, they'll do like Sabine action and then make us so we have to do something first. So you can play Lady Proxima and then they feel safe. Okay, they play something, they'll play a unit, and then you play another unit, right? You play your Dengar or your Greedo, and then you still get the ping from Cad Bane. And then you get a damage, and then you get a ping on base as well, and then you can Tarkin Town, and then we've put it 1 damage on base and have 2 units on board, and they have nothing on board, right? So that just sets us up really good if we have Lady Proxima and another 1-drop. So generally how you're playing the deck, turn 1, like I said, you're looking for Proxima and Dengar or Greedo. If you can, you want to go second, so even if your opponent dirtles their first action, you can still get Lady Proxima in, and then you can get a base ping and a unit ping and potentially Tarkin Town. I like to Tarkin Town almost every time, turn 1 into aggro, because it really sets them way far behind. In the mid-range, it kind of depends on the unit that they're playing and the deck they're playing, but Tarkin Town turn 1 sometimes is not the right answer, but in the aggro, I think it's almost always the right answer because it just puts them so far behind. You want to play underworld cards as much as you can to maximize the Cad Bane and Lady Proxima pings. The deck really hinges on that. Forlom and Zuckuss, like I talked about already, they're a huge combo, and if we get that combo off, most games I feel like I'm going to win at that point. People, if they see Forlom, they're going to try to remove Forlom. They don't want this combo to happen, which is fine, because if they're investing all their resources into stopping this combo, then I feel a lot safer about Toro and Boba Fett plays, or I feel a lot safer about Xanadu Blood plays because they're going to invest so much resources into this that we can still win in other avenues. Toro is great, like I said already, even though he's not underworld, we get consistent resets, and Xanadu Blood and Fennec are great closers, and Cad can also be a great closer. One of my favorite round 6 plays, like I said already, is um, deploying Cad Bane and then smuggling in the hot shot blaster onto him, so then he swings for 6. Uh, that is that's a big swing for us, and then you can play another 3 drop. You can play Boba Fett, you can play Toro, you can Relentless Pursuit and shield one of your bounty hunters. So, um, like I said already, the Cad deploy turn is really good, and I like the Hot Shot Blaster play on the Cad deploy turn to make him swing up. Fennec is also really good here because she's an underworld unit, and she swings up, and so we can trigger the pings, and the ping helps her on attack ability even better. So Fennec is really good here as well. So our sideboard, like I said, with power failure and disabling Fang Finders, we're really looking at upgrade hate, trying to remove dark sabers and trenches and whatever else we're gonna see. Bazine's good against control and those pesky crate drecks that are running around because we can rip some of their key stuff. I really like Daring Raid as a way to finish off units or to hit the base, and the 2 damage can really complement Cad Bane pings really well. We ping a unit with Cad Bane, and then we can finish it off with Daring Raid in like the mid game or the late game. Daring Raid can finish off the units, and it can also help close the game by dealing damage to base. So Daring Raid is one I did have main board for a while. It's kind of going in and out of between the main board and the sideboard. I do like it, but right now I like it more as a sideboard option. Um, and then Pillage is another one I like as a sideboard, and to bring it in against control decks, try to rip their hand apart, so they can't play their bombs and they can't, play their stuff to remove our units. So Pillage I like into control. During Raid I like into aggro and some other mid-range matchups. Bazine I like into control decks and some like ramp decks, so you can try to rip their key pieces. And then sometimes if you're playing against like entrenched decks, or if you're playing against decks like Sabine's going to be running around with dark sabers and wing leaders and experience tokens and all kinds of stuff, that power failure I think is going to be pretty important to remove upgrades on some of these leaders and units. So that's the sideboard. Here's the that's right. We got to talk about adjustments. Some adjustments: you could add more bounce. Pirating the Pirated Starfighter is one. When you play it, you have to return another unit to your hand. So that's another way you could add more bounce with the Pirated Starfighter. It is a pretty decent space unit. So that's another option. You could add more bounce. You could also go all Underworld Ambush. You could add like Cloud Riders and Enfys Nest. I don't like Enfys Nest so much at 6 because like Cad Bane is like our 6-drop on that turn, but I like Xanadu Blood on 6. Might not make sense, but just Enfys Nest she can protect Forlom and Zuckuss, but by the time she comes in, they're already in play. So it doesn't make sense for her. The only person she's really protecting is Fennec, and Fennec doesn't really need the protection. So, yeah, that's why I don't have Enfys Nest. If I was doing all yellow Cad Bane, then maybe Enfys Nest would find a spot, but not in the Tarkin Town version. You could also add Smuggle. Don't really have any Smuggle in here other than the Hot Shot Blaster. So you could add like the Smuggler Starfighter, and there's some other things you could add if you're looking for some Smuggle or some protection against hand hate. Those are really the adjustments you could make, but I wouldn't. I'm pretty happy with the deck overall. Some things I did have in here that I took out that I had in originally. One was Chrysanthemum, just not enough bounties for him to be consistently good. So he hit the chopping block. And then before Toro, I had Django in. So the same thing kind of with Chrysanthemum. Django wasn't ever really getting the +3 in Overwhelm. He was never the 6/6 with Overwhelm. He's always just the 3/6, which is fine. That's a fine stat. The 6 health is great. And you don't care so much about only having 3 damage when you're pinging units all the time. But I really valued him for his card draw. I would use him to trade with a unit and then draw a card. But so far the resets on Toro have been more meaningful in the games I've played since. Um, Dr. Evansen's another one that on turn one we feel good about playing if we don't hit the Lady Proxima plus a one drop. That's kind of where he found his way back in. I didn't have him in here for a while, but he found his way back in as another option on turn one to play because he is a 3/3 with a shield, so we can still use him to push some damage in the base, or we could um, bounce him back to hand so our opponent can't get the resources. And you can be smart with Evanzen to make sure our opponent doesn't get a lot of value out of his bounty, but we can get a lot of value as a 3/3 shielded unit that we can bounce back to hand with McClunky or Xanadu Blood later. So Dr. Evans is another good one. Punishing one is another one that resets and swings above its weight class. It has good stats as a 3/4 for 3. And then when an upgraded enemy unit is defeated, you can ready it. So that works off of guild targets. That does work off of Frozen and Carbonite if you would defeat the unit you put on ice. It also works on upgrades your opponent plays on themselves. So like experience tokens, any other upgrade they'll play, any of those new Mandalorian upgrades, the Van Braces and Foundling and whatever. Whenever an enemy that has an upgrade card attached to it is defeated, you can ready Punishing One. So it's a very solid statted space unit, and then also we can get extra value out of it with resets. So Punishing One's another really good one I didn't talk about already. Gamorrean Guard's also just really solid. 4/4 with Sentinel. 90% of the time, most of our units are yellow. So Gamorrean Guard is almost always online. And then that's pretty much the deck, but this one I really like playing. It's my favorite deck to play so far in set 2 by a mile. It's my favorite character, so it works out. Pretty strong aggro tempo deck. Go mid-range tempo. It's somewhere in that, you know, uh, in that sphere. But it's just a lot of fun, so go give it a try. I call it Doc Holiday Space Adventure. But yeah, this one's a lot of fun. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you in the arenas.